Kevin Smith is one of the biggest influences on my life. I started making movies after watching Clerks, and it set me on my path towards becoming a filmmaker. I've watched everything the man has made, and I have heard almost every word the man has said on a podcast. That being said, there is no single shot in his entire filmography that has stuck with me like this one in Clerks 3. I also think this shot is the real key to understanding a hidden meaning deep inside of Clerks 3. Clerks 3 is actually a movie about the importance of prayer and the power of Christianity, even if that's a surprise in a movie filled with dick and fart jokes that's loaded with nostalgia. In the beginning of Clerks 3, we see Randall Graves have a heart attack, like a chronic devourer of fast food is prone to do. This sets the movie on its course. However, one shot in this sequence really stands out to me. It's right here when the ultra-religious and Christian character Elias prays for God to save Randall from his heart attack. On first glance, it can seem like this is just a throwaway joke to set up the change in Elias's character in this movie to eventually becoming a laughable caricature of a goth Satanist. However, if you look at the background, you'll notice something. Look at the automatic doors. They open normally as people continue to walk through them. Now look at the background as the prayer starts. We see lightning strike in the distance. Now pay attention to the automatic doors. The doors open up with no one near the sensor. Not even close as Elias continues praying. Shortly after this, Randall survives his heart attack and the main story of the movie takes place. Kevin Smith is famously Catholic and has thanked God in the credits of many of his movies. Kevin Smith also made Dogma, a movie about the power of faith and belief.
Are you saying you believe? No, but I have a good idea. Yes.
God also makes a cameo in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, closing the book on the View Askew universe. A book that stayed closed about as long as Ezra Miller can avoid trouble with the law. Kevin Smith has grappled with religion in the past, including his run with Daredevil. Obviously, there is Dogma and Red State. But one of the most interesting tidbits about religion comes from a crossover episode of Smodcast and the podcast Tell 'em Steve Dave. For full disclosure, I do some production work behind the scenes for Tell 'em Steve Dave. I have met Kevin Smith very briefly at signings and such, but I can't say I've ever had a conversation with the man. Anyway, let's check out this clip from Smodcast 128.
I was at Our Lady of Star of the Sea Church in Long Branch, New Jersey, and I swear to this day that I met Jesus Christ. It was Jesus looking like the janitor at the church.
Did it change your life after meeting Jesus?
Yes. It was also at a very low time in my life. I wasn't looking for the rafters, but I was feeling really, really fucking down. A girl had broken up with me yet again, and all I'd ever wanted to do in life was marry that chick. So I was just like, I had no direction. I was sitting in the back of church. I went to Mass one night, to like a 5 o'clock Mass, I think, on a Sunday. And after Mass, I just sat there praying, which is something I hadn't done in a while. And hours gone by. Church is closed and whatnot. Generally, they don't lock up till kind of midnight. The dude came through from the front, which is where the altar is, coming from behind the sacristy, kind of comes down the middle aisle, stops at me, and he goes, "What's the matter?" And I was just like, I don't know, nothing seems to make sense right now. I'm just going, I don't know, I just need to pray or something like that. And the dude goes, "Everything's going to be fine." It always is. Walked away. So I was just like, prick.
Janitor.
But I've been to that parish. That had become my parish. I've been going there all the time, and he wasn't from there. So I went to the priest lived next door or whatever like that. So I went to talk to them, and I was like, "Hey man, there's a dude who just said something really fucking nice to me at the right time, and blah blah blah. Is he working the church?" And he was like, "No. What are you talking about?" And I was like, the dude that came through." He's like, "Nobody's been in the church." And I was like, "Well, I was in the church." He's like, "You shouldn't have been in the church. It's locked up." And I was like, "The church is locked?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, somebody else was in there." He came from the back of the sacristy. He's like, "Nobody. There's the only person that has access was me." And I was like, "You weren't in the church?" And he's like, "No." And I was like, "There's a dude who came out and he told me everything was going to be okay." And the priest goes, "Well, maybe that's God." And I go, yeah, right. But then when I left him, I was driving home, man, I was just like, maybe that was Jesus. I've convinced myself that was Jesus.
Now, that's obviously one of the biggest moments a person could have in their life. It's not something you can easily forget. Even though Kevin would later denounce religion, stating in a 2015 interview, honestly, when the dog died, I kind of realized this. I watched him pass. He was an incredible life force. Never once throughout his entire existence did this dog look up to me and ask, am I going to heaven or hell? He had no religion. I think it was at that moment I just suddenly grew up. I hit a point where I was like, you know what? I don't need a story that somebody else tells me that's going to tell me what's going to happen after this. Rather than focus on after this, I'm going to focus on this. Put all my energy and faith and spirituality into life, not worry about or wondering what happens after death and listening to anybody who has a story to tell you about angels and whatnot. There's a plaque hanging at my house, a yoga thing, and I passed it for years and never really read it. It says, may you realize your divinity in this lifetime. It's not about living in service to some being you can't see. It's about living in service to everyone here. Aren't we supposed to be beings of our own little universe, make things better, not rely on somebody in the sky to help us out? I have zero compunctions about having been raised Catholic. It was great stuff to tell a kid who didn't know what would happen to him after he died. Now, I know what's going to happen to me. I'm going to sit in a box and rot in the ground. So I'm going to try and make the most of my life while I'm here. All of that spirituality people want to focus on in the afterlife, I'd rather focus on the living. Being spiritual isn't necessarily being religious. I don't begrudge anybody. I was just with my mom. She's struggling to hold on to the last vestiges of Catholicism as well. You just get to a point where you're too old and it doesn't make sense anymore. Then the truth starts creeping in and logic starts creeping in. It's not like I lost my innocence or something. You just realize, hey, I'm ready to handle more than I did when I was a child. I would hope I could handle more. So Kevin has clearly abandoned his faith, but he still believes in some regard because he cites being spiritual. In fact, I think Kevin may even feel bad about his current status with faith. Full spoilers for Clerks 3 follows, so please prepare yourselves. In Clerks 3, we have the scene that I suspect we see Jesus or some divine presence enter the room. Elias is unaware that this miracle is occurring in the background. It is at this moment that he denies religion and Christ, even as God is answering his prayer. Later in the movie, Dante has a heart attack, but Elias has renounced God. There is no one left to pray for Dante, causing him to die. Elias is the most important character in the movie. In fact, he's the key to everything. Elias losing his faith causes Dante's death. It is also possible that Elias represents Kevin's feelings for how he has given up on religion, especially after once saying he met Jesus, and in a 2004 interview saying, "My career is proof that God exists." Elias is the reason for Dante's death in the story of Clerks and the View Askew universe, a universe where we have witnessed various miracles and God as well. What do you think? Am I crazy and the door was just opening naturally? Was this a random malfunction? Or was this Kevin Smith inserting some religion into his movie, for whatever reasons he may have? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I thank you all for making it this far. This isn't the usual content we cover on this channel, but I figured it could be fun to do some video essays. If you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. We're a comedy and history podcast available on all major platforms. Typically, our show revolves around historical movies and talking about what's real and fake in them as we make jokes throughout the show. We also have a lot of other things in the works, such as documentary projects, full podcasts, and possibly other essays. If you like this, please stick around, like, and subscribe. Click the bell to get notifications, and we'll see you next time. Bye.